everyone. This is Loralyn Mears with the Grit Daily Like a Boss podcast. Thanks for tuning in today. We've got a special guest, Dr. Tommy Watson. He has got a number of lessons that he wants to share with us. He's gone through some things in life, as many of us have, but he's been able to work with those lessons and work through them. And that grit and resilience and faith has brought him to a new level in his personal state of being. And I wanted to bring him on our show today to bring that inspiration to our listeners, because everybody's been suffering and struggling with COVID and all kinds of other things. And I think these messages of inspiration from Dr. Watson can really help us today. Hello, and thank you for joining us.
Dr. Loralyn, how you doing? It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Well, like I said, we're excited. Everybody needs a little more inspiration once in a while. And as we started the call, the listeners don't know this, but I have just had one tech issue after another, and Dr. Watson has been very gracious about it and very patient, understanding that sometimes tech breaks. Sometimes it's just not your friend. And so
grit today. You have to show some grit, some real technological grit. There you go.
That's right. And we have persevered through it, and here we are. So maybe by way of introduction, that, you talk to a little bit to our audience about who you are and the place where you are in your life today.
Sure. Can I start by giving a little personal background on myself? It makes it a lot better to understand. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. That's exactly where I'd like you to start.
Awesome. So it's a pleasure to be on with you, Dr. Loralyn. I really appreciate that. So I'm originally from Denver, Colorado. Grew up there. My mother and father were drug addicts and shoplifters. And unfortunately, because of their behaviors, my siblings and we had to pay a heck of a price. So, Dr. Loralyn, by the time I finished high school, my mother and father had been arrested 121 times. So as a kid, I spent a lot of time in foster homes, crisis centers, motel rooms, bouncing around from place to place to place. There's 6 of us. We never all lived together as kids growing up. Lived in 7 different motel rooms. Met my oldest brother by pure coincidence in a foster home in 2nd grade. For me, I was getting ready to try to join a gang in 3rd grade because I was seeking something, and ended up getting involved in sports, and sports became my lifeline. And I ended up getting a scholarship to go play for the University of Minnesota. I found myself homeless as a senior in high school, had 32 scholarship offers, and I left Denver almost 30 years ago, Loralyn, and never went back home. I left there. My mom was in prison. My dad was in prison. My little brother was in prison. My grandmother was my last legal guard, was in a nursing home. My oldest brother was back there involved in gangs. My older sister was back there on crack cocaine. My second older sister was in foster care in Iowa. My younger sister lived with my aunt. Between my junior and senior of high school, I lived in 5 different locations and went off to the University of Minnesota. All I had was a trunk and really had to make life work for me. And then I, got injured, thought I was going to the NFL, got injured, forced me to get my education because I knew I didn't have any safety nets. So I went on and got my education, went on and got my 4 degrees there. Very proud of those. And thank you very much. And became a school principal. I had a huge heart for young people in our youth, trying to let them maximize education, and then decided about 11 years ago to jump away from that and start my own business, speaking, coaching, and consulting. So that's what I do now. Kind of brings you to where I am now.
Exactly. And that's the place, like I said, where, we wanted to be able to connect as the founder of Steeris, and bringing soft skills and coaching Gen Next, or Gen Z, as most people call them, bringing them to that next level of career readiness and preparedness. Maybe you could talk to us a little bit about your experiences as you're coaching this next generation and trying to help them move forward. Can you share some of that without, of course, no names, no details? We want to keep all that stuff private, but what you can share as far as insights.
Yeah, one of the things I had the opportunity to do here recently was to speak to over 2,000 McDonald's restaurants and their crew, and letting them know the importance. McDonald's played an important role in my life. I got fired after my first job out of college for not having leadership skills. And I went to work at McDonald's, and I won the leadership award after 2 years, and then went into the school system. And within 4 years, Loralyn, I was never a teacher. I was never a assistant principal. I was never worked at the central office. I became a principal just based upon the skills that I got from a McDonald's. So one thing I was telling the crew people that is so important. This is one of the things I had to learn how to do as a young person as well. And I transferred this over to what I coach people on today, though. I had to learn how to dream beyond my circumstances in order to get beyond the challenges that I was facing. It's so important to have a vision. If you don't have a vision for yourself, a goal, a plan every day you wake up, I always tell people, be aware that someone else has a vision and a goal and a plan for your life. So every day you have to wake up dreaming, thinking about what it is you want to do. Tap into the things that you love doing. I played sports, but had someone come along and told me, Loralyn, about the opportunities to, for leadership and entrepreneurship. That would have been really great for me. So I tell a lot of young people and people I'm coaching, though, to really, really tap into what it is that drives you, what motivates you, what you truly desire, and not what you've been told to desire. That makes sense.
It absolutely does. And I think you also raise another really good point is we're looking around and you're hearing all kinds of, well, complaints. I mean, let's be honest and call them for what they are, from restaurateurs, franchise. I shouldn't say French fries. You got me thinking about McDonald's now. Franchise owners who are saying that they can't find any talent. And there's a lot of young people that I've spoken to that said, well, why would I want to work at, whatever, insert fast food chain here? And companies like McDonald's, like Starbucks, they have tremendous leadership, learning and training programs. And there's a lot to be said for learning on the job when you have to deal with that tough nugget customer, right? Who's not so happy with whatever you just prepared for them.
Absolutely. That my McDonald's experience, I tell people that was probably one of the greatest experiences I had in terms of work history, because again, I got a chance to make mistakes on McDonald's dime. I went in their global management training program, had to learn how to develop people, train people, in some cases terminate people, but a lot of it I learned about marketing. But most people don't realize that your average McDonald's restaurant is usually about a $1 to $2 million business. So if you can jump in there as a young person, and even as an older person, I went there to work at McDonald's in my mid 20s, almost 30s, with a college degree. And the skill sets that you gain from working at a multi-million-dollar company like a McDonald's or Burger King or Starbucks is absolutely incredible. It prepared me so much so when I became a principal that I knew how to put the customer first, my teachers and my students first, because I learned at McDonald's. I learned how to develop other people. I had to be able to work through other people to get things done. So I was at McDonald's. I couldn't do everything. A lot of people, my wife and I, we kind of go back and forth sometimes. She does not like delegating tasks. She's all on everything. But one of the keys to successful leadership and being an entrepreneur is you got to be able to delegate. You can't do everything all the time, though. So McDonald's really had a philosophy that you had to work through other people to get things done. So as a leader, I had to know who had what skill sets and what they were bringing to the table, and constantly position them to be in positions of success. So as a principal, I had to do the same thing. I had to know which of my teachers were strong in areas of math and English, and I constantly removed barriers for my teachers, gave them a vision, and really kind of bought into what it was that they really wanted and desired. I did the same thing for my McDonald's employees, because everyone wants something. Everyone wants something. You got to tap into it. If you're going to be any type of leader in any type of industry, whether it be education, corporation, church, it doesn't matter. The people you're leading, everyone has something that drives them. And as leaders, we have to tap into that. And learning that as a young person can be invaluable.
And I think you've just tapped into there. I don't want to put words in your mouth as like the top advice for not even just for young people, but for leaders is find out what it is that people want. I mean, as I'm going through my journey, what I'm finding is that everyone ultimately is selfishly motivated, right? They have their agenda. There's something that they want to move forward. And as a leader, you can either be a conduit to help them move that forward, or you can be a blocker that prevents them from moving their agenda forward. Of course, that creates friction, right? Or you can be the gateway that enables them to move it forward. And then that creates all kinds of new opportunities as a leader.
Absolutely. And Loralyn, that is the foundation. My doctoral work was on motivation. The foundation for motivating anyone, whether it be in sports or in entrepreneurship or in business, you have to start by knowing what drives that person. They call it the hook. What's their hook? What's going to reel them in? What gets them excited? Why are they here? What's their why? Everyone has a why for doing something. You have to tap into it. The second thing you have to do is once you tap into what that person's interested in, you have to help them formulate a vision. It's so important to help people get a vision, because ancient scripture says where there's no vision, people perish. Where there's no vision, people leave companies. Where there's no vision, people let their businesses flop, So you got to have a vision for what's possible. And then you have to also be able to cheer them on. And then you have to, as an individual, you have to be able to cheer your own self on as well. Because if you don't have as a leader, sometimes you're not going to have a whole bunch of people there cheering you on that front door when you come through the door before everyone else. You got to be self-motivated. So you got to find some systems, you got to find some music, you got to find some quotes, you got to find something inspirational to keep yourself going on a day-to-day basis. Because if you don't, your motivation is going to lack tremendously.
Would you be willing to share what motivates you, what your fuel is, whether it's daily or weekly fuel?
Absolutely. When I decided to leave the job as a principal, my supervisors came to me and they were trying to use incentives around money. I'm not a person I'm not motivated by money. What I am motivated about, Dr. Loralyn, is by freedom. So entrepreneurship worked really well for me because, again, this stems back from my childhood. When I was in third grade, I got a chance to see my mother in prison, and seeing her locked up like an animal, it crushed me. And I said, you know what? I never, ever want someone to have that level of control over my life, whether it be physically, mentally, economically, it doesn't matter. So for me, I've always valued freedom. I love the creativity that comes along with being an entrepreneur. I love the freedom to help others. I don't have to work through, when I was a principal, whenever I had an idea, I had to work through 15 different committees to work, get things done. As a solopreneur, I'm totally driven by freedom and creativity. So I don't have to work through a lot of people. I can simply go with my heart's desire. And I just love making a difference in the lives of people every day.
And it's so rewarding. Talk to us about how you get through the days that aren't so rewarding, right? Where you're having tough days, like I was sharing, I'm having a terrible day. Like that movie, like No Good, Awful, Terrible, Super Bad, whatever that movie was, Awful Day. That is today.
Absolutely.
Tell me what you do on those days to keep you going.
There's something I always remember. I either have a choice to be the thermostat or the thermometer every day. So I can let the environment dictate how I function, and I be the thermometer, or I can be the thermostat to set the tone. So I really try to get up and set the tone. I get up, I listen to music in the morning time. I usually work out. I do some morning meditation. I do some reading of some scripture and some other things. So I really try to set the tone by setting my energy level really high so that I can dictate everything that happens around me, and so that's not necessarily dictating me, though. So we have to have a choice. We have to make a choice whether we're going to be controlled by the environment or whether we're going to control the environment each and every day that we get up each morning, if that makes sense.
It does. And then I think related to that, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about how you keep things contained so that any of that negativity or those bad days don't encroach on your state of being day after day. Can you share some of that?
Absolutely. Another piece that's really important to know is that, because sometimes when we have tough days, people say, oh, boy, it was a flop. It just didn't go well. But I want people to understand that failure and success aren't opposite ends of the spectrum. Failure and success are a circle. You need them both. So there are going to be some days things aren't going to work well. So at the end of the day, you have to say, okay, what did I learn from this? And then what am I going to do differently tomorrow? Knowing that failure and success are intertwined in our circle are very, very critical things to know as a business leader or entrepreneur or whatever it may be, because then you start recognizing, realizing that you really don't have any bad days. You have some days where you just simply learn more than other days. So we have to ask ourselves the question again, what did I learn from this day? And what will I do differently tomorrow? And that really helps and sets the perspective for all of us. And I do it for myself as well, And sometimes when I'm having those days where things just, I'm constantly learning, I kind of stop my day early and take some notes and then kind of meditate over what went wrong or what didn't go as I wanted to go, and then come back with a plan to address those the following day.
I like that. And I really believe that there is no such thing as coincidence, right? Things are supposed to happen as they're supposed to happen. Absolutely. We were scheduled to do this podcast, I don't know, whatever it was, a month ago. And then life happened on both sides. We rescheduled. Here we go. And despite the best efforts of the universe to try to prevent that from happening today with that little technical glitch we had earlier, it happened. And I believe it's happening for me today. And you're telling me exactly that, because this is a day that I have, let's put it this way, and in your words, I've been learning all day. Lots of learning today. Yes. So our conversation tonight is very timely, and it's a good opportunity to reset and recalibrate. But in that vein, one of the questions I really like to ask my guests is, if I gave you an undo button, would you go back and you could go back, I should say, and undo one thing, what would you undo?
That's a great question. I would say that I wouldn't undo anything. I wouldn't be who I am today without the trials and tribulations, the agony, the defeat, the victories. I wouldn't be who I am today. So I would not go back and do anything different, as difficult as it's been. Now, I would also say that I wouldn't want to necessarily go back and relive those moments either, though. But each of those moments have made me who I am today and have brought me to a certain place where I think a certain way. I often tell people that sometimes in life, Loralyn, that adversity is a far better teacher than victory. If you simply go through life winning, what do you learn from winning all the time? What do you learn from easy? What do you learn from running through the finish line unscathed? Sometimes we got to get some bumps and bruises. That's where we really learn as much as we possibly can from adversity. So all the adversities that I faced in my life have really been instrumental in teaching me who I am, what's important to me, who's important to me. So yeah, I wouldn't go back and change a thing.
No, and I love how you've taken, not just negative, but some just heartbreaking childhood experiences that you've had, and you found a way to not let them define you in that sense, but in the same sense, you've used them to fuel who you wanted to become and who you have become. This is an incredible story of perseverance, of resilience, of vision, of intention.
Yes. And I'm actually getting ready to launch my coaching program, a new coaching program I'm going to be doing here. It's called the $1 Million Business Pathway. And one of the key components is, I tell people that your purpose in life is not connected to something out there. Your purpose in life has been connected to something here. Our purpose is connected to our story, something we've been living our whole lives. Malcolm Gladwell talks about 10,000 hours. 10,000 hours are the things we spent time doing, 10 years experiencing. So our stories and purpose and everything we're looking for joy are never out there. They're already in here. But sometimes we have to reflect back in order to go forward. So we'll be talking about a lot of that and really helping people hone their stories. And for those individuals who want to take their stories and create entrepreneurial opportunities for them, it's going to be a great program for them. So, adversity is a great teacher. It's a really good teacher. Yes.
Yes, it is. It's a harsh lesson or lessons to learn, but definitely there. We'll have to include that link in our podcast abstract and brief there to your new program. So we want to be sure to promote that. Is there a link that you already have already that you can tell our audience?
They can go to tawatson.com. They'll be able to find some more information about the $1 Million Business Pathway as well. But it'll be launching in November. So stay tuned. Put your information in there. We're gonna get you that information as soon as possible. So we're looking forward to have you join us. Yes.
Oh, fantastic. So we'll be sure to include that link. And now, just with respect to, the shift towards entrepreneurism, if you look at the statistics, last year in 2020, 4.2 million new businesses launched in the US. And an average year, it's about 2 million.
Yes.
So there seems to be a shift. And that said, given that you've been a principal and you work with, college and undergraduate students and high school students and even younger students, and you've had those experiences, how do you think the future of work is evolving, and what needs to change in our educational system to really meet up with today's demand and today's directions?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think one of the reasons that things shifted so much in 2020 was because of the adversity. There's some creative things that takes place when things are good for you. You don't necessarily think, and you're not really creative, you're not resourceful, but when you have challenging times, that's when you're at your best. And, I used to often challenge my teachers in our building to say, let's make sure we're developing critical thinkers. We want our kids to be critical thinkers, because if a kid can be dropped off in the middle of anywhere and figure out a way to survive, whether it be coming up with entrepreneurial activities or just connecting with people, learning the language, that gives them a great sense of purpose. It gives them a chance to evolve and do great things in our society. But I think one of the things that's missing in the workplace and in our schools is the ability to be critical thinkers. I think we're trying to mass produce everyone to be the same type of individuals. And we have to simply embrace it. There are some people who, being a principal, I loved it, but it just wasn't for me at the end of the day because there was too many things that I was trying to do that didn't work within the system. So we have to allow the freedom for people to be creative, but at the same time, we want to push them along to get things done as well. So our schools are really missing out on an opportunity. We need to insert more opportunities for them to be critical thinkers and be creative.
And well, I mean, it's not surprising that you've come up with this, but I mean, all of the discussion that I've been tracking in the last couple of months, business owners, managers are lamenting the inability for the new hires to come on and to demonstrate critical thinking.
Yes.
That where they go and they make a move where you question, go, oh, I can't believe you did that. Didn't you even stop to think?
Right.
And I see these examples regularly. We work with a number of interns at Steeris and what we do. And these interns will put out content on YouTube. It'll be missing the video and they'll post it. It's like, did you look to quality control? Right. It's like, well, I didn't think I had to. It's like, well, there's an example.
Right.
And you bring up creativity. I'm starting to see this just in recent threads in the last month or so where, and I think it's a result of they've cut music, they've cut art, they've cut all these wonderful programs in schools that allowed children to be children and think out of the box and not be the cookie cutter. And you've absolutely nailed the top two really soft skills that people are lacking and they're not being taught.
Absolutely. And again, there's definitely a place for math and science in our schools. Those are critical skills. However, kids need to also know how to be creative. They need to know how to have conversations with other kids. They need to know how to work out. They need to know how to cook for themselves. They need to know how to be independent. So there's so many different skills that we've kind of pushed by the wayside just to simply push more STEM, science, and math. And again, those are critical skills, but we have to have balance. Right now, we have an imbalance taking place in our schools. And I'm hoping that we get more of a shift back to the they call STEAM, where you have the science, technology, engineering, and arts back in there, and math. Because those are what we want are balanced kids. We don't want just simply brainiacs who can just tell you all the stuff, in a book. We need you to also be a critical thinker when the book isn't available for you, though. Now, what do you do? So it's critical for our young people. It's critical for our adults. I mean, we have adults our age who work in, workplace who don't have those same critical skills either, though. But I think the piece of it as well is many of those folks who may be around our age, though, Loralyn, they were told that they've been scared to make mistakes. So as entrepreneurs and leaders, we have to create an environment that welcomes people to make mistakes. I work with the McDonald's. They allowed me to make mistakes on their dimes. I didn't get penalized. I didn't get fired for making mistakes. You said, hey, what did you learn from it? What are you going to do differently? That's what resilience is all about. People hear the word resilience. They think resilience is just about survival. Resilience is about surviving, but also thriving. So the way you thrive is, what did I learn from this situation? What will I do differently going forward? So we have to create an environment where everyone around us, thrive. They survive, but also they're thriving and they're resilient. So we have to create an environment where people are able to learn from their mistakes and not let the mistakes be detrimental to their careers.
That's right. Creating these safe spaces where, it works on both sides, where you can say, well, such and such was done incorrectly. Here's the correct way, without going, boom, and lambasting the person. That's not going to work. Absolutely. But the person on the receiving side also has to be, there and be open to getting some feedback, even if it's not particularly favorable. And that's hard to get that, that dynamic right.
Yeah. And letting the person who's receiving the feedback know that, just because it's feedback that's not necessarily applauding you doesn't necessarily mean that it's tearing you down either, though. It's all there to build you up. It may sound differently, but at the end of the day, the purpose, the mission, and the motivation behind it is to build you up, to help you be more successful. Yeah.
Because we're humans. We're not automatons. We're not robots that are programmed to do the same thing exactly the same way every time with whatever X, 0.99999, percent precision. We're human. Absolutely. We fail. And we have to learn from that and evolve. And it's just, I'm loving this conversation. And so let me turn it around. What can our audience do for you, Dr. Watson? You've given us so many insights in your time here tonight.
I'm such a big fan, Loralyn, on everyone has a story out there. You talk about a soft skill. That's one of the soft skills I think we're missing in our society, in our world. We're in a world right now where we have people who are on this side and people who are on this side. The way we come to the middle is by sharing our stories and experiences, because what's happening is the people over here are creating a story about the people over here. People over here are creating a story about the people over here, though. one of the ways that we can best come together as human beings and as a society is to begin to share our stories and our experiences. It's hard to hate or fear someone when you know their story, because now you get the why behind what it is that they do. So I really encourage our audience out there, spend some time sharing your story with someone. Share with your kids. Absolutely. Our kids love it sometimes. They get tired of it other times. But share it with someone who may be different from you. I mean, I love going to different parts of the country and just asking people, what is it like to grow up in a farm in Iowa? Tell me what it's like. What hardships did you face here? What did you do for fun? I mean, it's nothing like learning about someone who may not necessarily be in your immediate circle. So learn from others, share your stories and experiences, but also embrace and share theirs as well. That's the way we come together and stop creating these fear and these stories that don't necessarily reflect who either side is, because there's great people on both sides. And we want to come together as human beings and live together as human beings. That's one of the best things we can do, and share those stories, and follow me as well at tawatson.com and share those stories with me as well.
Oh, for sure. And it's all about where, like you're saying, we have our own stories to tell. It's not our place to tell someone else's story.
Right.
I mean,
we make up their story, right?
Oh, for even worse, right?
Yeah.
And pretend create some other narrative. I mean, we can be vehicles for other people's stories, but we have to allow the story to be authentic and to come through, that we can't distort it and all these sorts of things. And that's why you're so right. Like, people have to work together, as they say, we've got, 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? Absolutely. So we need to do this twice as much as this.
Yes, absolutely. And, we've been trained to listen to stories. You look at commercials are told through stories. Movies, of course, told through stories. From earliest ages of kids, we've been taught and trained to listen to stories. So it should be natural for us as adults to do more storytelling and sharing our own stories with each other as well.
Perfect. Now, after all this serious conversation here, we've got a funny little question. It's our signature question here to wrap up our podcast. And it's all about telling us which pair of shoes best describes your personality. Are you a sneakers guy, a fancy dress shoes guy? And tell us about your favorite pair of shoes and how that exemplifies your personality.
Wow. You know what? For my wedding, I have some real nice black. I like dress shoes. I really love dress shoes. I won't spend a lot of money on tennis shoes. I'll spend maybe $40-$50 on tennis shoes, but I go all in on dress shoes. So I have a pair of shiny black dress shoes that I just love dearly. And every time I get a chance to speak, I wear them. I was never in the military, but they shine just like the shoes of anyone in the military. They're spiffy, and so I like that polished look, though. So that's what defines me. Tennis shoes, I love wearing them when I'm not in suits, though, but they won't be at all. Absolutely.
And our audience should know that Dr. Watson is impeccably dressed in a beautiful suit, a pocket kerchief, and a matching carnation boutonniere. So everybody should know that and kind of rise to the occasion here. So with that, again, I want to thank Dr. Watson. You can find him at tawatson.com and voice your stories and take a moment to listen to other people and hear their stories. And as you said, if you're looking to find someone giving you some motivation, some inspiration, and to help nudge you along your path toward entrepreneurialism, check them out.
Look forward to seeing you guys. Call me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Watson.
Pleasure.
And how about that fantastic intro by Touch Circle?